On his son's 28th birthday, he hoped only to hear one word, Dad. Through the glass, the birthday wish turned into a cut. Best gift? You disappear. On an Ohio night, he kept silent. Instead of arguing, he quietly fixed the porch light, shimmied the step, and left a warm thermos of coffee on his son's porch. What happened between them? Can a father's warm gift erase the hatred? His kitchen is as quiet as a deep pond. Only the kettle gives a soft groan, the hiss of steam tapping the mouth of the spout into a thin, drawn-out line. On the table, the freshly roasted chicken casserole breathes the smell of crisp skin and singed onion. The old pale yellow ceiling light casts a round pool around the baking tray as if marking tonight's territory, the things that can be controlled: heat, salt, time in the oven. Beside it is the blue thermos. The paint has peeled in places, exposing silvery metal like scars long healed. The lid twists once, snug enough. He touches it to be sure it's still tight. His finger pauses at the chipped strip of paint on the body, the place where the boy once scratched a line out of curiosity. He doesn't smile. He merely sets the flask in its exact spot by the edge of the tray, like placing a sentence prepared in advance beside the dish. If needed, pour. On the shelf, a brown paper envelope lies open. He has already chosen the photos from the tin box under the bed, ages 6 to 12, colors slightly faded, corners soft. Some are smudged by dirt-stained fingers. One carries a blue marker streak for reasons unknown. He doesn't count. He only smooths each one, gently slides them into the envelope, listens to paper brushing paper like very light footsteps in the next room. The flap folds. He licks it, seals it, presses a neat line. A gesture so small no one would notice, yet it gives the kitchen one more sound that belongs to the living. On the tabletop, near the hand towel, sits a small box holding a new porch bulb. The cardboard sleeve bears simple white lettering. The glass bulb rests in its cardboard cradle like a soundless egg. He opens the lid, lifts the bulb, holds it up to the ceiling light. Inside, the hair-fine filament is still. He sets it back, closes the lid, tucks the box into the old gray canvas tool bag. Screwdriver, tape, a small oil can, rag scraps. Things that have followed him through many houses, through seasons when the wind changes. The zipper draws over its metal teeth with a tidy sound, a straight line from end to end. He leaves the bag by the table leg, within easy reach. The refrigerator shudders once and goes still. On the window ledge, the pane is misted with condensation, turning the Ohio street outside into a washed-out graphite streak. Early April hasn't quite warmed. A draft through the crack of the door slows the cooling of the chicken's smell. He lifts his collar without thinking, as if he still feels the wind on his neck each time he steps onto the porch. On the key hook by the door, the ring gives a faint clink. Something glints among the keys, a thin, worn gold band. He looks over and looks away, like someone closing a drawer in his head without making a sound. He spreads a clean cloth over the casserole, folds the four corners in the habit learned at the plant. Every edge straight, every corner square, each motion slow and exact, leaving no slack. The whole kitchen falls into the rhythm of his hands. The kettle lowers its groan. The oven gives off less steam. The wall clock jumps one tick at a time. The emptiness is still there. A chair no one sits in, a bowl no one uses, but each thing sits in its proper place, like little nails holding the plank from springing up. He writes nothing down beyond his son's address in his head. No long note, no instructions. He opens a drawer, takes out a pen, then caps it again. Instead, he lines the bottom of the tool bag with the photo envelope, sets the porch bulb on top of it like a light object keeping watch. The bag closes. The strap is tied in a simple knot. A small gesture. Enough. He pours boiling water into the blue thermos, swishes it once to warm the belly of the flask, pours it out, then fills it again, this time with black coffee brewed by the old machine. The steam rises straight. The coffee smells sharp yet gentle. He tightens the lid until he hears a tiny click. That sound steadies his heart as if someone had laid a hand on his chest and said, "It's all right." Amid the scraps of sound, the clock hand, The steam, the zipper, there is a pocket of silence. In it, he leaves one thought standing still. Tonight, if things go right, there will be a quiet meal, maybe just a few bites of chicken, tasted in a hurry on the porch steps, maybe a nod that doesn't need to be long. And if he's lucky, one short word will be called correctly, Dad. He doesn't say it aloud. The word sits in his throat like a small grain of grit, enough to remind a person he is still alive. He turns off the stove, wipes the table with a well-wrung cloth. Each stroke leaves a faint, bright trail on the wood. By now, the kitchen is tidy like a lidded box, ready to carry what can be carried. The emptiness is still there, not gone, but it steps back to make room for something concrete, wrapping, keeping warm, placing into hands. He lingers at the front door a moment, looks through the peephole. The hallway is dark, no one passes. He lets out a quiet breath. There is no plan beyond bringing the casserole, the blue thermos, and the tool bag to a porch. The reason to stay one more day, it turns out, need not be large. Keep the chicken from going cold, keep the coffee hot, and set a bulb where the dark tends to flicker. Just that. And because it is only that, he feels he has enough reason to slip his hands into his coat pockets, wait for the kettle to cool completely before lifting the flask. The phone lies face up on the table, its screen dark like an eye waiting. He taps the record icon. A small red circle appears. Very small. There is no one on the other end of the line, only the sound of his own breathing and a faint, far-off clatter from the pipes in the wall. He opens his mouth, sets a few words outside words that have been weighed all morning. They come out disjointed, like pebbles dropped in the wrong place. He stops, hits delete. The screen turns smooth again, quiet as if nothing had ever happened. The second time he tries changing his breathing, keeps his voice low, tries to break long words into short ones. One opening sentence, one closing sentence, with the middle left blank. Halfway through, he hears himself explaining. He doesn't want to explain. His finger glides over the trash icon, a short, neat tap. The third time, he says nothing, only lets the stove's faint ticking slip into the phone. A thin thread of steam runs along the rim of the kettle, like a pencil line blurred by the wind. He deletes again. The silence is cleaner than any unfinished words. The key ring beside the phone gives a small sound when he pulls it closer. Among the worn keys is a thin gold circle, shining with a tired kind of light. Emily's ring, clipped on for many years, going with him through hundreds of door closings and openings, through winters and sunny months. He uses a fingernail to pry open the clip. The metal pops lightly. The ring slides off the loop like a drop of water leaving the side of a glass. No ceremony, no goodbye. He sets it in the second drawer, the drawer for things no longer used every day. Stubby pencils, rubber bands, old bills, a spare screw. When the ring touches the bottom, the tiny tap is like a speck of dust touching wood, and yet the kitchen's air shifts by half a beat. He shuts the drawer, pushes until he hears the latch click into its groove, this time tight enough not to spring open on its own. A thick coat hangs on the door hook. He puts it on. The shoulders cradle the wearer like two hands that know how to adjust themselves. In the left pocket, he slips a clean handkerchief. In the right, a small folding knife, sharp enough to cut string, not so sharp as to harm a hand. The wallet sits on the shelf. He opens it and pulls a few bills, a few fives, 1 10, some change enough for a black coffee somewhere. The plastic cards stay in the wallet, along with a gas top-up receipt whose print has faded. He folds the wallet and puts it back on the exact old stripe of dust on the shelf, like returning a book to its place. The blue thermos lies waiting on the table, the metal body cool under his hand. He lifts it to test, feeling the weight of water and coffee inside, a weight just enough to make a small commitment. There will be heat, at least on one side of the porch. He tightens the lid once more, not because it's loose, but because he needs to hear that click one more time. It's like a seal pressed onto the will of a man who isn't good with words. In the wardrobe door mirror, the pale gray image of a 62-year-old man appears, collar jutting up, a lean jaw, eyes hollowed yet lit in the way of a kitchen lamp. He straightens his collar and pulls the coat zipper up to his breastbone. The excess on him is pared away, the cheap aftershave smell, the worn knit cap. He leaves the cap behind, bareheaded for the wind. What should go with him comes down to a few things: the casserole already covered, the blue thermos, the tool bag. Everything else, the explanations, the opening lines, the hypotheses, he leaves in this room, as if letting the kitchen keep them warm a little longer and then cool for good. He checks the tool bag. Flathead screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, a roll of cloth tape, a small bottle of oil, the new porch bulb in its cardboard box. Not a professional's kit, but enough for the small squeaks. He touches each item lightly, as if touching its name, confirming its existence before tucking it in. He pulls the zipper. The canvas strap loops once around his wrist, a feeling of safety like gripping a short rope. By the door, the old shoes wait. Crumbs of last season's mud still catch in the grooves of the soles, like a faint map of roads already traveled. He sits, slides his feet in, pulls the laces until he hears the tiny serrated rasp of nylon tightening. When he springs to his feet, his knee twinges a little, enough to remind him that time is also something to carry, not something to set down. The phone is still face down, no notifications needed. He slips it into the inside pocket of his coat and mutes it. No bell. If needed, someone will open the door because the porch light no longer flickers. If not, the blue thermos will stand there. His resolve tonight is no bigger than a finger tapping the mute, a small coin, a nod. Go, do the small, tidy things, without asking to receive anything in return. He reaches to flip the kitchen light switch. Darkness comes on slowly, but not completely. There's still a sliver of light leaking through the crack of the door, thin as thread. He lifts the casserole, tucks it into his left elbow. His right hand takes the tool bag. The blue thermos rests in his palm like holding a heartbeat. On each finger are small imprints from metal, from hot handles, from leather, enough to remember, enough to step out. Not to buy any distance, only to shorten it with oil on a hinge, with a new bulb, with the taste of coffee that keeps warm through a silence. He sets his hand on the latch, exhales evenly, and opens. The door opens onto a slice of early April Ohio, a new thin chill in the air, the river's smell cool and damp, the grass before the porch slick with water as if someone had just passed without leaving footprints. Daylight hasn't fully gone, but the street has already blended into a pale gray glow. Far off at the intersection, the Third and Maple Diner sign blinks the word Maple, winking on and off like a tired eye, wrapped in a halo muddled between yellow and green that makes it easy to believe it's later than it really is. He stands on the wooden step, hands still on the latch, listening to the first seasonal wind tap lightly at his ear. The low roofs across the way have begun to light up, each window a narrow gold frame, enough to make out someone inside pouring water, setting a pot, or just passing by. Between them, the road slips along in a wet strip like a fish's spine, the smell of wet asphalt mingling with old rotting leaves from the strip of grass beside it. From the middle of town, a riverboat lets out a long blast, dragging with it the clank of metal somewhere in the docks. He turns his head to look back into his house through the door not yet closed. The old coffee maker stands still on the counter, its greasy aluminum body freckled with stains, the buttons polished smooth by fingers. On the sill are two apples past their day, their skins wrinkled like water and wind. The kitchen light from moments ago has left a small glossy streak on them. The TV in the living room is pitch dark, its screen a black mirror reflecting an empty armchair, a gray knit blanket sagging crooked on the armrest. Everything holds still as if waiting for a very small command to kick in, but that command never comes. He sets the casserole on the doormat to free his hands and reaches for the porch light switch beside the frame. A light press makes the switch click. The bulb above gives a slight tremor. Pale yellow comes on, then stutters once, a soundless blink before holding. Its circle reaches just to the edge of the wet lawn, casting a tired honey color onto his shoes. He tilts his head to take in the bulb, listens for the very faint purr of the aging filament. The light isn't strong, but it's enough to show an uneven step, enough to keep someone coming late from tripping. He suddenly remembers coming home empty-handed, finding the keyhole on the first try thanks to this light. No one thanks a light bulb, and yet a light bulb keeps doing its job, like breathing. Outside the gate, the neighbor's tabby slips through the fence, leaving a wet streak of fur on the slat. He bends to pick up the tool bag, the canvas strap tightening around his wrist. He tucks the blue thermos under his arm, warm and solidly heavy. Before closing the door, he steps back half a pace to look at the kitchen once more. Coffee maker, overripe apples, TV off 3 quiet commas in an ordinary day. In contrast to everything moving out there, inside his house, everything waits. No reproach, no hurry. If prolonged, this stillness would turn into emptiness. But on an afternoon like this, it feels like a courteous doorman. He pulls the door almost shut, still keeping a hand on the knob, as if holding the room's breath. Then he cracks it again. Just a slit, the thickness of a coin to let his eyes check that the stove switch is off, the faucet tightened, the towel hung on its hook. In that thin instant, he sees a fine line of dust on top of the TV glint, like a silver thread where the porch light catches it. He closes the door fully, turns the key, and hears the bolt slide home with finality. The early April wind slips into his collar, carrying the river's smell and the chill off damp floors in the houses. He lifts the casserole, finds its balance on his arm. His other hand holds the blue thermos, feeling the metal warm and cool at once, a mediator between fire and wind. From the intersection, the third and maple sign blinks again. Third and Lee, the P going dark for a moment before flaring back, as if Ruth inside were feeding more current to the bulb. He doesn't go in yet, he just stands listening to that steady blink, like a street clock reminding him there's still a place tonight to sit and pour a cup of black coffee. On the wet lawn, last season's footprints have blurred. Only a few shallow sags of earth remain from last night's rain. He steps down from the porch and tests the wedge brick under the edge the brick holds. The porch light behind him keeps a small coin of brightness on the path until his back passes out of it. He doesn't look back. But at the corner of his eye, by old habit, he still registers the yellow glow holding steady, trembling a little, but not going out. It sits there like a just enough promise. Wherever he goes tonight, there will still be a place to come back to without stumbling. The backyard of the rented house is shallow like a palm of a hand, the grass mottled patches of green and red earth. String lights are slung from the kitchen door to the wooden fence, a few bulbs blinking lazily like a drowsy eye. A wooden table is nicked with splinters. Beside it, a styrofoam cooler is packed with beer cans, the lid scored by an old crack. A silver 28 balloon is tied to a chair back. When the wind blows, the two digits tap against each other with little clicks. The smell of beef on the grill tangles in hair, mixing with mayonnaise and damp grass. From the black grill, smoke runs thin like handwriting. He slides the spatula under a patty, hears the steady sputter of fat hitting coals. When he sees embers slip into the dry leaves by the trash bin, he reaches out to switch off the fan and shifts the whole grill base, a handspan away from the leaves. The feet scrape over the bricks with a gritty skitter, leaving a long black streak like an ink stroke. With that done, he wipes his hands on his jeans, flicks a quick glance to check for any hiding sparks. There are none. He says nothing, just pops a beer open on the table edge, a little foam spilling. He wipes it with a napkin, then chuckles again at a friend's joke. On the table are a stack of white plastic plates, cheap hamburger buns, pale yellow cheese slices stuck together, a bowl of pickled cucumbers soaking in sugar vinegar brine. He splits a bun, sets it on a plate, adds meat, cheese, tomato. For Tyler, he says half under his breath, almost only to himself, then wraps the plate in foil, pulling the edges tight so the heat won't escape. He sets the plate at the table's edge, away from hurried hands. Someone asks, "Is Tyler coming?" He shrugs, adds nothing. The plate stays there, waiting. A bottle cap falls, rolls across a crack between bricks, and lodges under a folding chair leg. He bends, picks it up, and drops it into the trash can with a spring lid. The motion is quick as a habit. No one notices in time. Right after, he bursts into loud laughter again, shoulders shaking, head tipped back. his palm slapping the tabletop with a soft pop. The laughter spreads, hits the fence, bounces back, sounding a little hollow. On the railing hangs a white painted wooden sign, "No smoking near grill." Half the paint has flaked away. A navy jacket is draped over a chair back, the shoulder seam slightly worn, an old model outlet piece from back then. He doesn't notice it because it's so familiar. His phone on the table shimmers with a notification. He taps to lock the screen and leaves it. The playlist runs a mix of old country and mainstream pop, the drumbeat steady like a timekeeper for a party with no one leading it. The left side neighbor has an old dog. It lifts its head a little when someone laughs too loud, then sets it down again. Along the fence on the right, a skinny maple lets fall a few dry brown seeds, pattering on the cooler lid. On the kitchen window, a scrap of paper is held by a magnet, a shopping list, soap, toilet paper, trash bags, detergent, in his hurried, crooked but readable hand. Beneath it are a few crumpled grocery receipts. Friends thread around one another, perfume mixing with smoke. Someone teases him with an over-the-top line. The whole group whoops. He laughs along, raises his beer to clink the air can against can clacks sharply. When a lull opens, he dips a finger into the sauce on a plate, tastes, frowns very slightly, then adds salt. The frown passes as quickly as a string light bulb flicking off and on again. He looks around. Enough chairs, enough plates. Someone has already gathered the empties into one spot. He bends to pick two more cans under the table and presses them down in the trash for neatness. Dusk deepens. The string lights blink in one long pulse, then steady. The thin smoke veers with the wind. He lifts the grill lid. The smell of meat surges up, rich, his eyes stinging a little. A late friend trots across the wet lawn, shoes muddy, tosses a mid-noise apology, then pours his own beer. He hands the guy a burger, says, "Still hot," in a voice just loud enough, and turns back to the slice of cheese sticking to its paper. At the yard's edge, a stack of half-folded cardboard boxes leans against the wall. He was in a rush during the move. Now he still hasn't decided whether to fold them carefully, to reuse next time, or throw them out. That undecidedness stands in the corner, quiet as a silent guest. Beside it sits a small rocking chair he picked up at the flea market, the paint crazed with hairline cracks. It will still rock if you sit lightly. The music changes tracks. A familiar guitar intro kicks in. Someone whoops. He smiles, his elbow tapping a rhythm on the tabletop. In that brief hush, his eyes flick to the foil-wrapped plate for Tyler, catching the reflection of the string lights on the crumpled foil. He eases the plate farther in, away from the table edge where it could be knocked off. No one sees the gesture. A thin gesture, like a new curl of smoke, still enough for one to notice that amid the boisterous laughter, a small part of him is saving something for someone. Night keeps pressing up against the fence. Shapes gather around the scarred wooden table. Laughter rises and falls. On the concrete, a splash of spilled beer spreads and then dries. At the back door, his kitchen light comes on, throwing a golden triangle at the threshold. He passes through it a few times, tongs in hand, smoke woven into his shirt. Everything is so ordinary it barely counts, and for that very reason it leaves a small place to breathe. A plate wrapped tight, a bottle cap in its proper spot, a grill pulled away from the leaves. These small things don't make the party grand, they just keep it from coming apart. And tonight, for him, that is enough. The alley behind his son's house is narrow as a thread, the ground still damp. He kills the engine at the mouth of the lane and walks, his hand cupped around the tool bag strap to keep it from swinging. From the backyard, the string lights flicker a tired beat, then steady again. Grill smoke, braided with grease and ketchup, blows through the patchy painted wooden fence. He stops in a dark corner where the grass grows low and the brick wall keeps the afternoon's chill. The cloth over the casserole has cooled, yet still breathes a thin warmth against his left wrist. The sliding glass door is nearly shut, the sheer curtain pulled askew to leave a narrow gap. Through it, the kitchen shows in slices. A tabletop freckled with crumbs, a beer can open, hands passing back and forth, the cap opener bolted to the table edge, flashing a shard of metal. The background music mingles with laughter, thumping the glass and sliding down the wooden steps like heavy rain on a tin roof. Someone says something about 28, palms smacked together in quick claps, sharp. He sets the toe of his shoe to the edge of a torn doormat and listens. His heart beats steady like the wall clock at home, but off by one count. The blue thermos in his right hand feels heavier than usual. He shifts his grip to the chipped patch of paint for a surer hold. The overhead string lights blink again. In that blink, he catches half his son's face. Sweat at the temple, mouth open in a grin, a beer can in hand, his eyes on someone beyond the frame. Then the line pops out, neat as a bottle cap being flicked. Best gift? He can be gone from my life. Quick light, half joke, half truth pure party tone. Laughter swells at once, carries on. Somebody whistles. The string lights tremble. The shine skates over the glass like a fish slipping past. The casserole slides an inch in the crook of his arm, enough to tug the cloth off center. He pulls it close in time, but the smell of roasted onion suddenly surges, pushing a hard heat up his throat. He lowers the casserole to the grass to steady his hands. The wet blades print a round mark under the tray. Water seeps quickly through the layers of cloth like a reminder. Out here is colder than he thought. He pulls the cover tight again, smooths the edge so the warmth won't escape. His other hand keeps hold of the blue thermos. His thumb finds the familiar chip and stays there like a small gatekeeper. Inside, someone pops a beer, the tack rings clear, followed by the cap rolling across the tile, then stopping. A faint ting of glass meeting glass, just enough for those standing close to hear. The music shifts into a chorus, easy to hum. Along the slit of curtain, a body crosses, blotting out half the kitchen, then giving the space back. He lowers his head a little, as if letting the noise slide over the bridge of his nose. The pain is a little fogged by the warmth inside and the chill outside. Shapes beyond the haze turn to shadows, leaving only light and dark. An arm lifting, a head bowed, a slice of bread pressed flat. The earlier sentence doesn't return, but its aftertaste hangs in the air like a clothesline, not yet taken down. It's not heavy enough to snap, not light enough to lift away. It's drawn just tight enough to make every laugh after sound a shade hollower. He doesn't knock. The hand he had set in the spot where he'd imagined 3 light taps like every other time draws back, wipes itself on his pants without thinking, leaving a dim smear of fat and water. The wooden step underfoot gives a little. He shifts his toe off that place to avoid leaving a print. On the sliding door, the aluminum frame makes a tiny sound when someone leans from inside. The sound touches his ear through the glass, like an object from his own house, delivered to the wrong address. Beyond the fence, the wind veers. From the river comes a long whistle, a slow, thick band of sound that touches the rooftops and dissolves. The casserole lies still on the grass, the cloth pulled tight, its heat slowly burrowing into the ground. The blue thermos in his hand keeps sending up a loyal warmth. He stands there, hearing each bottle cap pop that follows like punctuation marks scattered after a long sentence people are telling each other. Each tack is one more reason to keep quiet a little longer. At times, his son's silhouette passes the curtain's edge again, slower this time, tongs in hand, lifting and lowering as if conducting a tipsy orchestra. Sometimes he stops to listen to someone, then shoos with a wave and laughs. He watches that motion the way one watches a clock hung high, not to read the hour, only to take in the beat. A drop from the eave lands cold on the back of his hand. He doesn't wipe it away. For a few seconds, everything holds. The string lights stop blinking. The laughter runs short of breath. The wind wedges between the two fences. He bends to nudge the tray on the grass level, a small, near meaningless adjustment, and thanks to it, he can keep his back straight for one more minute at the edge of his son's merriment. At that edge, no words are needed. There is only a man, a tray of warm chicken, and a pane of glass thick enough to keep everything on its proper side. He steps back from the edge of the glass door by half a foot, like pulling a hand out of cold water. The wooden step under the toe of his shoe gives a small sound enough to remind someone is here. He sits on the porch step, back against the low railing, knees drawn close for warmth. The casserole is set at his feet, cloth pulled tight, its heat spreading into a small circle in a night that is shrinking in. The blue thermos lies between his hands, its metal body cooling. He presses his thumb to the familiar chip in the paint, smoothing it slowly until his breathing finds an even count in for 4 beats. Out for 4. On the 5th, his chest stops aching so sharply. Through the slit in the curtain, the kitchen keeps running like an old movie. He doesn't need to watch. The clack of cans, the scrape of chairs, a burst of laughter flaring up and dying down. The string lights overhead blink again. The light scrapes across the edge of the glass, making the tiny floating dust look like fine snow. The sharpness of grilled meat has faded, replaced by the stale open smell of beer and sauces smeared on the table. Everything is happening exactly as it should at a loud birthday, and the loud part doesn't call his name. He sits in what remains. His left hand taps 3 light beats on the thermos lid beats he once used to start a phone conversation or to time the wait for water to boil. Now the 3 beats are only to confirm that the hand still obeys, that he can choose not to knock on this door. A mosquito lands on the back of his hand. He doesn't brush it away. It draws a little and flies. The pinprick is a small period on a blank page. Just as he bends to lift the casserole to shift its position, his eye catches a patch of navy behind the folding chair near the door, a jacket thrown over it. In the stuttering light, the fabric shows the look of many washings, the fibers at the shoulder slightly fluffed, the metal zipper track, old nickel color. That model he remembers the smell of plastic and the crrrk of a new zipper at the outlet store years ago, when the boy in 11th grade bounced on one foot in impatience, hand on the pocket as if afraid someone might snatch it. Back then, he told him not to pick a light color so it wouldn't show dirt. He chose navy anyway. And tonight, that jacket is here, calm as an object that needs no caption. He looks at it one more beat, long enough to notice the worn patch at the right elbow, the kind of wear from leaning too much on a desk. Perhaps it's not the very one he bought that day. Perhaps it's only the same model, the same habit of choosing. It's enough for a scrap of memory to stand up and sit down again. The wind shifts, threading cold into the place where he's leaning. He sets the casserole one step higher to avoid the damp ground, pulls the edge of the cloth snug. He holds the blue thermos close to his chest for a moment, like someone cradling a bag of warm seeds on a snowy day. His breathing is steady now, but the steady tack of bottle caps inside keeps turning like a small pin in a rib cage already thin. Not sharp pain, just a fatigue. On the porch, at the door hinge, there's still that thin squeak, finer than hair against cloth, each time someone pushes the door. He hears it by old trade instinct, needs a drop of oil. The left-hand step is a little off. You can hear it in the sound of a sole hitting it. The porch bulb also blinks once, then holds. He can fix those things. He knows it. But now is not the time now. The thing most fixable is himself, and that repair begins with a U-turn. He sets the blue thermos upright by his foot and slips both hands into his coat pockets against the brittle shiver. A bottle cap rolls out near the step from inside and wedges in a crack of the wood. He reaches to pick it up out of tidy habit, then stops midway. The thing doesn't belong to his part of the porch. He lets it fall back, to lie like a comma that's run out of breath. In the yard, the music trips over an inserted ad and then resumes. Someone calls out a toast. Other voices answer, whooping. He stands. His knee joint gives a tiny nick. Casserole hooked in the crook of his left arm, blue thermos in his right hand, tool bag dragging a soft canvas rustle. He backs off one step into the wet grass, then another until his back no longer touches the rail. With each step back, the noise inside gains one more layer of glass. At the mouth of the alley, he stops to switch hands for balance. The casserole's warmth reaches through his coat, leaving a hand-sized hot patch on his left side. He looks one last time toward the porch. Through the glass, the navy jacket is still where it was, The string lights still blink. Someone's mouth is moving, but the words no longer carry. No one looks toward the alley. That makes turning his back a little easier and a little harder. He walks along the dark brick wall to the car parked by the trees. The trunk opens with a lazy spring sound. The smell of rubber mixed with the old wood of the cargo liner rises. He sets the casserole in the place already cleared, wedges it with two empty canvas bags so it won't slide. No metal clink, no ragged breathing. The blue thermos is laid on its side beside it, cap turned inward like someone who doesn't want to look out at the road. He closes the trunk pushes slowly, keeps his hand on the edge until he hears the lock click, just enough, startling no one. No note, no scrap of paper left behind, no hurried engine rev either. He stands by the car a moment, hands still on the closed trunk edge, eyes following the paint's grain where a little distant light is reflected. The wind blows again, bringing the river's smell into the lane. In the sky, a few dim stars washed pale by the city. Behind him, kitchen laughter goes on, like water running through a rocky bend of river catching, splashing up, then running again. He rounds to the driver's door and opens it. Before climbing in, he looks back down the alley one more time, as if checking he hasn't forgotten anything. A footprint on the grass, a figure on the step, a nod not yet given. Nothing remains but a trace of warmth on the wooden step and a wet round in the grass where the casserole just stood. He sits, pulls the door shut, hand on the wheel. His fingertips still carry the feel of the chipped paint on the blue thermos, a small point of purchase for a man leaving without making a sound. The engine starts softly. The dashboard lights come up. The clock points to an unimportant hour. He doesn't turn on the radio. The tires roll slowly over the damp pavement. No hard brake marks, no burst of acceleration. In the rear view, the alley contracts into a gray strip with a few blinking yellow dots. Then it's gone. Only the steady engine remains, like a heartbeat that already knows where to go next, away from the glass door, away from the navy jacket, away from a night named by two words he hasn't heard again. No explanation, leaving nothing behind but a pocket of silence that could be returned to later, when one has the strength to light a bulb and oil a hinge. He pulls up in front of the Third and Maple sign. Maple blinks once and holds, its blue-yellow halo clinging to the street's thin mist. In the trunk, the casserole sits snug between two empty canvas bags. The blue thermos lies crosswise beside it, cap turned inward. He shuts the car door, stuffs both hands into his coat pockets to keep the day's last heat, then pushes through the diner's glass door. The bell on the door frame gives a properly measured ring. The diner is quiet, only the sound of a spoon stirring in a cup from a lone driver seated far away. The TV in the corner is on mute, playing an old game with a crawl running across the bottom. Butter, sugar, and fry oil scent the air. The black and white checkered floor tiles shine as if misted over. A long counter with red upholstery, the seat edges crazed like crow's feet. He chooses the end of the counter, near the coffee machine and away from the window. The fluorescent tube above whispers thinly. A stray fly clings to a round lampshade. He sets his cap down, folds his arms, and looks at the sugar packets lined neatly in a metal holder, each with the same crease. Ruth appears from behind the kitchen curtain, a woman in her 50s, hair tied neatly at the nape, pale blue uniform, a small beige band wrapped at her wrist. The skin of her hands is mapped with chalky cracks like roads on a dry atlas. She doesn't ask much, just nods hello, a practiced motion as if she already knows everyone who drops in at this hour. Coffee? She tilts the glass pot. Steam rises, the black surface clear. He nods slightly. A thick cup lands with a solid ceramic sound on the counter. She pours just enough, leaving room for breath. Beside him, a row of pies sits under a glass dome. Apple, strawberry, pecan, golden crusts lightly split along their ridges, sugar-dusted white like frost. Ruth finishes pouring and looks at him for half a second. She lifts the dome, slides out a slice of apple pie clean edges, a chip of crust falling, the apples cut large and still holding their grain. She sets the plate before him and tugs a napkin closer. For warmth, she says, voice just loud enough. She flicks a hand, adds a line to clear the path. On the house. He pauses. Light catches the spoon's edge and runs a bright streak across his knuckle, then dies. He doesn't refuse, doesn't fuss. He only nudges the cup to an easy reach, runs his forefinger along the rim of the plate to free a stuck grain of sugar, and sets it back on the napkin, a thank you without words. On the wall, a frying pan clock shows the wrong time. It's 1 minute slow, just enough for people here to feel they've been given an extra beat. From the kitchen comes the soft pop of oil. A lid tilts a little and settles back. Ruth pours water for the driver, hikes the slipping towel on her shoulder up, returns to the counter with a small check pad in hand. She writes something. The pen rasps on thin paper. The porch light at my place keeps flickering, she says, like reporting the weather, eyes still on the book. Day before yesterday, someone stopped by and changed it for me. When I opened the door that night, it felt easier to breathe. The words easier to breathe fall lightly, like coffee steam touching the back of a throat in the early morning. He lifts the cup. The coffee is properly bitter, hot. His tongue touches the thick rim. It feels like holding a warm stone. He cuts into the pie. The knife taps the plate with the smallest tack. The apples are soft, cinnamon faint, brown sugar quick to melt. The heat travels down his belly in a long, unhurried line. At the corner of the counter, a salt and pepper shaker lies tilted, left that way by someone. He straightens it, then lets it be. Ruth leans a hip against the counter, rubbing the band at her wrist in a habitual motion. She glances out the glass door. Lights flicker all the time this season, she murmurs, not quite to anyone. Someone changed it for me, and suddenly I don't hunch up so much every time I fit the key. She smiles a little, the kind of smile that doesn't crease the crow's feet, and tops his cup off halfway. He sets the spoon down, cups his hands around the mug as if to break the wind. In the smell of butter and sugar, he hears a light metal clink in the kitchen, the silent TV switching scenes, the driver's subdued cough. Together, they make an even backdrop. On the check slip, Ruth scrawls a few lines, then tears it off and sets it face down. The edge shows 2 words, coffee and refill. No pie. He takes out his wallet. There are a few singles he keeps separate. He tucks the money under the bottom of the slip, leaving a small corner peeking out, not to be seen, just to keep the paper from sliding. He doesn't say thank you. He only nods once, eyes flicking to her hand, wiping a coffee streak. In those dry cracks of skin, sugar dust catches and glitters in tiny grains. Ruth gathers the money without counting it in front of him and slips it into a soft old leather billfold. She nudges a packet of brown sugar toward him, as if remembering something small. If you like it sweet, add some, she says, then takes it back. Actually, it's fine as is. She squares the glass dome. The hinge gives a little squeak, and she presses it with her thumb. The squeak disappears. Light reflected on the glass makes a curved streak and slides across her cheek. He finishes the pie without hurrying, leaving round crumbs on the plate like small coins. The cup goes empty, then full, then empty again. With each pour, a thin column of steam rises. The diner's warmth seeps into his coat cuffs, into the wind-sheltered nook at the base of his neck. In his head, the phrase easier to breathe settles into a just right empty spot, like a small wedge fitted into a squeaking door. When he stands, he lifts his collar and takes his cap. Ruth hands him a small brown paper bag with a folded napkin inside. Take it so your hands don't get sticky, she says, then nods as if that's instruction enough. He nods back. The doorbell rings once as he pushes out. Cold wind hits his face, bringing the river and the lingering fryer oil smell caught in his coat. Under the awning, the Third and Maple sign blinks once, not in a hurry. He stands beneath the eave and tries a deep breath. The breath goes out more steadily than when he came in. Ruth's words sit somewhere between his tongue and his chest. Easier to breathe. They don't ask for anything. They're just there, opening a small path for a person to step out, then maybe back in. He takes the door handle and lets it go, pockets both hands and steps down. In the trunk, the casserole is still warm, the blue thermos still sealed. Here, he has been given a slice that won't show up on the bill, and a light word entered into the night. That word stays. The wind on the street thins out. He stands beneath the diner's awning for a moment, letting the sound of the doorbell behind him ease out of his ear. From the corner, the row of houses stretches like a line of short sentences. On each porch, someone flips a switch in turn. This bulb starts early, that one half a second late, and the yellow light spreads into small pools that cup the steps. In one doorway, a woman tests the knob and then looks through the peephole. In another, a child hugs a small dog and raises a hand to shield against the sudden brightness. On the porch of the house at the mouth of the lane, the newly replaced bulb still hums very softly, a sound like a lazy bee in a hollow of wood. Each speck of light, close up, is only electricity and filament. At a distance, they look like warm eyes slowly opening so the night hunches a little less. Ruth's, easier to breathe, sits somewhere between his chest and his tongue, needing no repetition. He rolls his coat sleeves up a notch and walks toward the car. In the trunk, the casserole is still wedged between two canvas bags, its heat no longer sharp but not gone. The blue thermos lies on its side, cap turned inward as if saving its voice. He opens the tool bag. New porch bulb, screwdrivers, a small oil bottle, a thin shim of wood for leveling a step. He picks up the bulb and turns it once in his palm, feeling the odd lightness of a thing that can change the rhythm of a porch step. He slips it into his inside coat pocket so his hand will meet it at once, like keeping a greeting ready. The streetlights tick on once more. The city tonight is no bigger than any other night, but the light pools at the porches give it a few real entrances. He shuts the trunk, the door closes with a tidy click. That sound, along with the tire's gentle grind over a wet patch, fixes a very short sentence in his head. No arguing tonight. The next sentence follows, smaller. Just fix small things so others can step through and breathe easier. He drives along the river, the water dark as a pane of glass, now and then tossing up fragments of the bridge's lights. The speedometer needle rests at a gentle number. No radio, only the turn signal's tick-tick as he turns onto a street lined with skinny maples, dry leaves scraping the hood like quick pencil strokes on paper. At the next intersection, the Third and Maple sign blinks once more behind him, then slips out of sight. When he reaches the mouth of his son's alley, he doesn't pull in right away. He idles past, glances at the backyard string lights glowing steady, then loops around the next block, turns, and comes back from the other direction. The arc of that loop drops the rhythm in his chest into an easy gear, no rush, no missed beat. He picks a spot under a tree where the streetlight is split into thin bands by dead branches. The tire kisses the edge of the gutter and stops. He doesn't kill the engine. The hum is small and even, like the breath of someone asleep through the nose. In the car, he checks one last time, bulb in the inside pocket, oil bottle tucked in the outer pocket, the shim wedged between two pages of an old manual so it won't snap. The casserole is warm enough to miss the fabric of its bag. He slides the bag closer to the back of the front seat so he can reach it. He sets the blue thermos in the cup holder, cap turned outward one twist, and it will open. There are no words to say, no line to win an imagined argument. There are only the motions: turn, oil, shim, wipe. Sound drifts out from the backyard in the middle distance. The music changes tracks. The congratulations sink into the background. Between those noises, he hears another, the door hinge faintly scraping, a fine, thread-like "re." He nods to himself, as if signing where a signature is needed. The nod isn't for anyone in the house. It's for himself, having just fixed something that seemed unfixable. The reason to return. He switches off the headlights, leaving only the parking lights dim. In the rear view, the alley is graphite-colored, and at its end the kitchen door casts a rectangular pane of light. He zips his coat up one tooth higher and tries a deep breath. His rib cage opens by half a knuckle. That much is enough for his hand to find the door handle and rest there. He listens, waiting for a cluster of laughter in the yard to break into small scraps of sound. When the quiet arrives, not long, but clear, he grips the handle and cracks the door. The wind brings in the river's smell mixed with the cooled smoke of grilling. In his inside pocket, the bulb taps his rib with a very faint sound. Night has settled completely, but along the street, the porches hold their dots of yellow. They don't promise anything large. They simply stand there, opening a way just wide enough. He puts a foot out of the car, sets it on the damp ground, and lets the engine's gentle hum behind him blend into his own breathing steady, small, just enough to carry him to a porch step he knows how to make hold steady. He parks under the trees, leaving the engine idling softly like a breath. The alley behind his son's house keeps its damp streak. In the yard, the voices have eased back. The music has shifted to a thin run of guitar. He pulls his zipper up one notch, slips through the dark, and stops at the porch steps, like stopping before a familiar door he hasn't touched in a long time. The tool bag is open a crack. The new bulb lies in a brown paper box, round like a silent egg. He stands on the second step, reaches up to cup the plastic shield over the old bulb. The cover sticks a little. He twists gently, hears a small thunk, then lifts it off. The old bulb shows a gray dusting as fine as chalk. He turns it counterclockwise. The filament inside quivers. One turn, two, then the bulb comes free like a baby tooth finally letting go. He lays it in his outer pocket so it won't roll. The new bulb goes in. His fingers find the threads and twist until he hears a click, a fingernail-sized, crisp sound. The yellow light comes on and holds, no more flicker. The pool of light wraps the step, pushing back the dark just enough to show the outline of his shoes and the wet streaks of earth. He backs down one step and tests his weight. The left tread sinks slightly, giving a muffled oop under the wood. He slips a hand into his pocket and pulls out the thin, whittled shim. Dry wood scent mixes with damp soil. He wedges the tip of the shim into the gap between tread and stringer, taps it 3 times with the butt of the screwdriver. Tock, tock, tock. The wood settles into place. He puts his weight on the toes. Tries again. The step holds steady. No more short breathing. He does it once more, just to be sure this steadiness isn't something he's imagining. Still steady, onto the door hinge. The squeal from earlier is a thin thread of sound at the second metal knuckle from the top. He twists off the oil cap, the tiny spout like a pin. One drop falls right into the joint and blooms into a little ring. He works the door in and out once. The it turns to another drop at the lower hinge. He pushes it a second time. Quiet. The door slides in its track like a small fish, finding its current again. He wipes the extra oil onto the edge of the rag, folds the rag, and tucks it into his pocket. His hands smell faintly of oil. He takes the paper napkin Ruth gave him earlier from his coat pocket and wipes the dark smudges at his knuckles, then wipes the pale dust mark off the shield he just reinstalled. The napkin soaks up a light brown ring. He folds it neatly and tucks it into the small trash bag tied to the railing post, leaving nothing to fall. The new light holds, making the porch step shine like a board just varnished. Somewhere inside, glasses touch with a far ting. He glances through the glass. A few shadows pass. No one turns. The night on the porch suddenly lengthens by half a beat, enough for him to finish the last task of the lighting up part. He opens the passenger door and takes the blue thermos. Its body still keeps warmth like a heart wrapped in metal. He pulls the photo envelope from the tool bag. The flap is sealed smooth, the brown paper dulled by the warmth of his hand. He sets the envelope on the step in a spot that isn't wet. Then he places the blue thermos on top, not weighing it down, just enough so the wind won't take it. The edge of the envelope peeks out a little under the base of the thermos, like a letter clipped in place for the addressee to catch as they pass through the porch light. He steps back half a pace and takes in where everything sits. The bulb steady, the step steady, the door quiet, the blue thermos standing neatly, the envelope tucked beneath. There are no words here. Everything speaks by its own weight and by the work already done. He sets his hand on the doorknob and lets it go again, a movement only to hear whether the hinge still complains. It doesn't. That quiet has a shape, like a flat sheet of water. He rubs his hands together for warmth, the smell of oil spreading in a thin film around his fingertips. He pulls out the gray work rag one last time and wipes clean the traces he's left on the knob, the light cover, the step's edge. This cleanliness isn't to erase his tracks. It's a way of returning things to their ordinary state, like straightening someone's collar as you pass without saying a word. The river wind slides along the back of his coat, not as cold as before, perhaps because this small pool of light has opened a pocket of warmth. He looks at the blue thermos again. The chipped paint on its body reflects a yellow streak from the new bulb. Enough, he thinks, not in words, but by sliding the screwdriver back into its place, capping the oil bottle, pulling the zipper closed on the bag. The zipper gives a tidy zert, like closing the lid on a glass jar that holds the warmth just gathered. He steps down off the porch, stopping at the edge of the dark. The porch light spreads, reaches the toes of his shoes, and stops, like a friendly greeting that doesn't push in. On the step, the blue thermos stands guard over the envelope, silent yet easy for the one who needs it to see. What needed to be turned on is on. What needed to be quiet is quiet. He pockets his hands and exhales slowly. The night suddenly has one more place to breathe. And from that breathing place, he finds he still has reason enough to stay a few more minutes. Not inside the house, but in the patch of light his hands have just turned into the right position. He stands in the freshly lit circle, hearing it hold the step like a hand laid on the shoulder of a late-night walker. What's left to do needs no words. He opens his inside pocket and takes out a small slip of paper, the kind he keeps tucked between a notebook's covers for noting screw sizes and lumber dimensions. The paper is lightly rough, its edges a little frayed. He sets it on the lid of the bulb box he's just opened to make a flat surface and takes a blue ink ballpoint. The ink line moves slow and even, the block letters like the way he taught his son back when you need hot coffee, just pour. Dad left it here. He adds no exclamation point, no name. One line is enough. The ink dries quickly in the wind. He folds the paper in half, then slips one side under the handle of the blue thermos. The paper sits at a tilt, the edge of the word coffee peeking out like a small reminder set just right. He moves the casserole up to the step above, close to the door. The cloth has held the heat this whole time. Now he pulls the corners straight, smooths them tight, leaving a breathing gap at the edge so the steam won't bead into water. The smell of chicken and onion lies mellow under the cloth, not sharp, just warm. He turns the tray a little so that when the door opens, no one will catch a foot on it. His hand brushes the handle without thinking, warm, just right, like the back of a gentle animal that has stopped trembling. Beside the step, an old metal mailbox is fixed to a wooden post. Across its face runs a dull strip of adhesive, the trace of a faded name label. Robert and Emily. The porch's yellow light makes the glue threads glint like fishing line. He pulls out the gray rag, warms it with what heat is left in his hand, and lays it on the glue, holding it for a beat to soften. Then he uses the edge of a fingernail to tease it up. The sticky strands peel off the metal like onion skins lifting. At the stubborn spots, he breathes on it. The moisture clings and he rubs harder. After a few minutes, the surface is smooth again, leaving only a faint halo you can see when you tilt it. He stops. The pen is still in his pocket. The clean space on the mailbox is easy to cover with a new name. He looks at it a beat longer, like someone testing a letter in place and lifting it away before it has a chance to touch. Nothing is affixed. He folds the rag and wipes once more, an ending gesture like dusting off a memory that has finished its work, leaving no mark but ordinary smoothness. Inside, footsteps skim by. Then a chair scrapes. The backyard lights glow steady. He slips the rag into his pocket, closes the tool bag and zips it up. The small zr falls still at once, like a confirmation. Done. He doesn't knock. The hand once used to the rhythm of 3 light taps just rests on the knob, testing whether the hinge still complains. Silence. He withdraws his hand and wipes away the accidental sheen of oil left on the steel. The paper under the thermos handle still shows a corner. The blue ink hasn't smeared. He centers the blue thermos on the step so that whoever opens the door will see it before looking down at the chicken. The photo envelope still lies under the base, the small weight of memory keeping it from blowing away. At the foot of the porch post, a dry maple leaf is snagged on a proud screw. He bends and plucks it, slips it into the little trash bag tied beneath the rail. Small chores like that return the step to a state a person can cross without thinking. No slipping, no squeaking, no need to look down for too long. The wind off the river moves through, carrying cold water and the faded smell of cooked smoke. He shifts to the edge of the light and takes it all in once more. The bulb steady, the step firm, the sliding door quiet, the casserole covered, the blue thermos plainly in view, the note readable, the mailbox clean of glue. Nothing extra, nothing missing. He backs down one step, then another, so the circle of light doesn't touch the crown of his cap. At the rim of the dark, he hears a beer cap pop somewhere in the kitchen, laughter striking the glass, breaking small, then falling. He pockets his hands and keeps his breathing even. What needed saying tonight has been said by a new bulb, a drop of oil, a shim of wood, a four-line slip of paper, and a tray of food kept warm. The rest he leaves to the porch light, to stand there and open a small way. When he turns to go, he steps carefully so as not to jostle the newly shimmed tread. His shoes meet the wet grass. Water climbs the edges of the soles. He stops at the tree across the way, where the shadow is thicker, and looks back for one last beat. No one sees him. No need. He tips his head the slightest bit, a kind of greeting no one receives, and slips into the dark band of the trees. Behind him, under the new yellow, the blue thermos keeps watch over the envelope. On the mailbox, no new name has been stuck on, and that is how he chooses to remain. With things sufficient to purpose, standing still, ready for the moment, someone opens the door and steps out to take a long breath. The party drains down like a song that has already passed the chorus. In the kitchen, the clink of bowls and spoons grows sparser. Someone laughs tiredly, and a draft through the back door thins the smell of grill smoke. He slides open the door. It runs along the track quiet as water. No more of that familiar and the moment his foot touches the step, the new porch light comes on like an arm laid over his shoulder, holding him still for a beat. The wooden tread under the toe of his shoe makes no sound. He shifts his weight as a test, waiting for the thin groan that used to haunt him every night. Nothing. Only the sound of fabric touching wind. The backyard string lights shimmer at the corner of his eye. But it's the porch's yellow light that holds him, bright enough to see each grain of wood, enough to notice the dried mud lodged in the grooves of his soles since the afternoon. In the middle of the step, a blue thermos stands like a guard. Under the handle, a folded note is tucked. The edge of the paper shows a single word. He reaches out, his thumb still smelling of dried mayonnaise. The blue ink block letters read, "When you need hot coffee, just pour. Dad left it here." Nothing more. On the lid, a small chip in the paint glints with a yellow line poured down by the bulb. He touches the chip with his fingertip. The cool of metal runs straight into his skin where there is a seam of time, finer than a hair. He lifts the thermos, slightly warm heavy. The lid is screwed tight. The body holds heat as if sealing in a voice both familiar and far. He doesn't open it. He sets it back, the handle turned toward the door so a passing hand can catch it easily. A brown edge shows beneath the base. He gives a gentle tug, an envelope. No name on it, the flap sealed flat. He sits on the step, elbows on his knees, and opens the envelope with a fingernail. Inside are unlaminated prints, their corners softened. The first photo. A boy of about 11, hugging a baseball trophy, face slick with sun, his other arm around the neck of a man who smiles little. The man's shoulder dipped to fit the frame. On the boy's shirt is a streak of dry dirt. Behind him, a patchy grass field, the same color as his yard now. The second, the back seat of a car, rain scored on the window. The boy sleeps with his neck askew, hugging a blue thermos nearly the same color as the one before him now, his lips touching the lid like a toy he won't let go. Another, a woman's hands kneeling on one knee on a porch step to tie a child's laces. Her hair throws a shadow over the small toe cap. The photographer stands inside, looking out, so a black door frame slices across the picture, like the present cutting into a day already finished. He filters through each photo. The sounds inside contract into a blurred backdrop. Someone calling, "Hang on, cutting the cake," the pop of a bottle cap, the scrape of a chair. On the porch, warmth from the casserole set close to the door slips through its tight cloth like the smell of a kitchen in some other place. He smooths each photo with the soft skin beside his finger, careful not to scuff the surface. The images don't tell a story. They only set a few pieces before him where they belong. Baseball dirt, a rain-streaked car window, laces tied a little askew, the dip of a shoulder to fit the frame. Behind him, a voice calls, "Hey, come check this." The words catch on the door's edge and stop on the porch like mist. He doesn't turn. He bundles the photos and slides them back into the envelope. The blue ink note still lies under the thermos handle, the line dry and even. He pushes the envelope back under the base as before, pressing until the brown edge touches the wood. His hand stays on the thermos for one beat, just long enough to feel the warmth inside push back against the chill pressing through his back. "You coming in yet?" Another voice calls from inside, lighter. He sets both hands on his knees and looks down at the step. His shadow falls into a square with frayed edges. The new light makes the skin of his hands less gray. He turns his head inward, opens his mouth, but lets only small, round words out. "1 sec." His voice is lower than usual, as if someone had just turned down the volume knob in his chest. The sliding door moves a little in its track when the wind slips in, silent, no more hair-thin complaint. He nudges the tread's edge with the tip of his shoe, testing his weight again. The step holds. A very short space opens inside him, exactly as wide as the thickness of a full breath. He looks around. The note, the blue thermos, the envelope. The casserole covered with a cloth sits close to the door, its corner already pressed smooth by someone. He touches the edge of the cloth, then pulls back. The smell of roasted chicken and onion is gentle, just enough to rouse the belly under his fingers. The backyard string lights blink once, then hold. In his palm, the skin suddenly remembers the cool of the metal from before, and the small warmth held within, a warmth that doesn't speak, only waits to be poured. Someone inside chuckles softly. The music shifts to an old wordless tune. He takes the edge of the blue ink note, pulls it out to read once more, then tucks it back under the handle the exact spot from before so the wind won't take it. The part that says "Dad left it here" remains exposed, bare like a stone set in the middle of the road. He doesn't cover it. He stands. His shadow peels off the step, shortening. Before going in, he smooths the end of the casserole's cloth, a gesture as small as straightening a stranger's collar on a bus. He pushes the sliding door one notch. No sound. From inside comes the cold sweetness of birthday cake frosting. He steps across the threshold, then pauses for exactly one beat on the line between porch light and kitchen light, like someone standing at the water's edge, not yet decided to swim. Behind him, the porch's circle still cups the wooden step, holding the blue thermos and the envelope inside a frame of their own. "1 sec," he repeats, this time only loud enough for himself, and he goes in without closing the door all the way, so the porch light can run into the kitchen as a thin strand. That strand asks for no answer. It just lies there, still, long enough for someone to trace later and step out. He stands across the street, among the skinny maples, their trunks black like pencil strokes. The new porch light pins a patch of gold onto the step, steady, not blinking. In that pool of light, the blue thermos stands neat as a sentry. Beneath its handle is the blue ink note. Beneath its base is the brown envelope. The sliding door is still ajar, a thin strip of light running into the kitchen floor. Inside, the voices have dropped very low, as if the house were breathing after a noisy stretch. He tilts his head slightly, lets his shoulders fall. A single word leaves him, thin as a fingertip. "All right." No one hears. The word touches the face of the night and dissolves like breath. He crosses the street, his shoes setting on the edge of the damp grass without a sound. The step is steady now after the shim of wood. He bends, lays his palm on the cloth over the casserole to feel the heat still a friendly warmth, enough that no one's belly will be cold if it's opened. He slides his fingertips under the tray, lifts it at the crook of his arm, brings it close to his chest to keep the warmth from escaping. The smell of roasted chicken and onion burrows into his coat, pressing over the thin film of oil still lingering on his fingers. The blue thermos is still there, watching like an old familiar eye. He doesn't touch it. The envelope lies still under the base, a corner of paper showing. He pauses for half a beat, like someone passing an old altar, then steps back down. The backward step is light, not tipping the pool of light. The porch step makes no sound. Everything keeps its order. The alley is empty, only the soft idle of his car under the trees, a rhythm like someone in deep sleep. He opens the trunk with his left hand. The spring lifts with a soft sound. In the trunk's darkness, he sets the casserole in the cleared spot, wedges it with two empty canvas bags so it won't slide. He pulls the corner of the cloth tight, his cupped hand gathering the warmth as if scooping up a coal to carry. The trunk settles shut an inch at a time, until the just right click. He keeps his hand on the edge for one more beat, like soothing a child already asleep. At the porch, the breeze nudges the still open sliding door. It closes a little more, the track swallowing a strip of light. No squeal, only the sound of nothing. He turns and looks back through the trees. The blue thermos is still there. The blue ink note still peeks out. The porch bulb holds steady like a sentence that has chosen its own way to speak. He walks around to the driver's side. Before getting it in, he stands still a moment, his eyes running over the details his hands have touched. The clean light cover, the doorknob with no oil smear, the mailbox smooth, no glue trace. On his left shoulder, the tray's warmth still leaves a ring, a reminder that something has just been carried away. Not to wipe it clean, but so as not to weigh down someone else's porch. He rubs his hands together. The faint oil smell spreads and turns into something neutral, like the iron scent of evening. The music in the kitchen shifts to a wordless passage. At the threshold, someone lays a hand on the handle. The door closes fully. The closing is very soft, thin as a strip of paper drawn across the edge of a table. Still no creak. In that moment, he hears his heartbeat more clearly, steady and low, like an engine humming far away. He opens the car door and sits. His hand rests on the wheel, and his finger joints suddenly recall the chipped paint on the thermos's body, a small point of purchase for what has stayed behind. The dash lights glow faintly. The fuel needle gives a nudge. He doesn't turn on the radio. In the rearview mirror, the porch cuts a gold rectangle, the blue thermos a dark dot at its center. He looks at that dot for one more beat, long enough to take it as a greeting, then shifts gears. The tires roll slowly over the damp pavement. The alley slides back, the row of trees pulling into parallel dark streaks. Behind him, the porch's pane of light doesn't change, like a small nail pinning the night into a quiet place. He doesn't look back again. The road ahead opens, asking nothing but that he drive straight. In his coat, the smell of roasted chicken cools. On the porch, the blue thermos keeps the place. The envelope keeps the words. And somewhere in his chest, the all right he has just said is still warm, enough for him to go on without dragging any sound along. The night drifts along the river like a tape running slow. On the water, the halo of bridge lights breaks into thin gold streaks, stretching with the wind. He sits on the familiar wooden bench, the backrest nicked as if by a bite. His coat hugs his shoulders, his knees drawn together against the cold. The thermos that's left, the one that isn't blue, rests by his hip, the steel body warm as if a small bird were sleeping inside. The phone lies face down on his thigh, silent for a long time, then buzzes once, brief, like a hand set on a shoulder. The screen comes on. The time reads 2:13 a.m. A message arrives, 2 lines standing straight. The step doesn't creak anymore. The coffee stays hot for a long time. Few periods to end the sentences, no extra words. He looks at those 2 lines the way one looks at a porch cracked open. His finger touches the edge of the glass and pulls back. The screen goes dark by itself, the night thickening by half a notch. He wakes it again, reads once more. Slower this time, each word a small point of light dropping into his chest. He doesn't reply, not yet. Instead, he unscrews the thermos lid. Heat escapes, a thin thread rising straight up and fading. He pours into the small steel cup he carries, the coffee sounding against the sides as it fills halfway. Then he pours another cup, sets it on the seat beside him, the cup empty of a person. The rim catches a streetlight, bright as a coin. Set close together, the two cups' steam meets and makes a tuft of mist the size of a fingernail. The river sounds even. On the far bank, a house has its kitchen light on late. The wind carries the smell of river mud, light as old copper. He lifts his cup, sips, the heat running from tongue to belly along a straight wire. The clean bitterness, no sugar, keeps a person from drifting. His other hand rests on the empty seat, fingertips on a scratch in the paint, smooth as the skin of someone asleep. The phone lights again, this time without vibrating, the screen back. The two lines still there, just like the note tucked under the thermos handle earlier. He slides the thread a little, taps pin. A small pin icon changes color. The conversation jumps to the top. The motion is so small, no one but him would know, but it steadies the night. Something has been sinned and won't fall. He sets the phone face down and lets the screen go dark. The two cups still steam, the left-hand one for the absent person. He turns that cup toward the river as one turns a chair for a late arrival. On the water, imagined streaks of porch light link into a thin road. He thinks of the ring of light before his son's door now, whether it still holds. Thinks of the blue ink note peeking under the thermos handle. Thinks of the brown envelope lying still at the base of the step. Each image arrives and stays in place, no jostling. Like kitchen things set back on the right shelf, he lifts his own cup again. The heat warms his fingertips, gathers in his palm as a steady warmth. On the neighboring seat, the cup for the absent person lowers a loop of steam. The liquid is still hot enough that if someone set lips to it now, they would feel a light burn on the tongue. He doesn't touch it. He leaves it as it is, intact, a way of saving a place. Wind pushes across the grass by the bank. Far off, a riverboat hoots short and settles. He feels in his pocket. The paper napkin Ruth gave him earlier is still there, soft. He doesn't wipe the cups, doesn't wipe his hands. The night's damp makes everything cling just enough, like a story with "and" between its clauses. He flips the phone, wakes the screen, lets his finger rest on the compose field. The cursor blinks once. He types a single character, then deletes it. Not because he doesn't know what to say, but because those two lines were enough. He swipes up lightly, looks at the small pin icon in the corner of the thread. It holds, quietly announcing that this patch of light has been set where it won't slip. He locks the phone and slides it into his inside pocket where it's still warm. The cup beside him still waits. He draws it closer, leaving the space between the two cups exactly the width of a hand. He leans back against the bench and exhales long. In his chest, his heartbeat drops a notch like an engine easing to idle. No words go out, only two cups keeping warm, a pin pressed in place, and an imagined point of light on a porch a few blocks away. Night leans toward morning. A thin gray band edges the eastern sky. He taps his own cup gently against the space between the two, a small clink, like a needle tip touching a saucer. Not a reply, just his way of confirming the moment's presence. Then he sets the cup down and leaves it. The message remains unanswered, and that, for now, is right. The light just lit deserves to stay where it is for one night standing there, asking for no more words. A few weeks later, the season's wind changes its voice. On the row of maples by the alley, pale green dots have opened into thin leaves. At night, the street is gentler. His son's porch stays lit late, a steady dot of gold that doesn't blink. Now and then, insects circle the lamp cover, spiral for a while, and drift off. Neighbors coming home late fumble less on the steps. The delivery car stops early, the newspaper laid neatly without sliding. One evening, when a gust passes and softens the light by half a notch, he steps out from the kitchen. The wood under his toe keeps quiet. He reaches up and gives the bulb a slight turn, a small, sure click. He wipes a thin film of dust off the plastic cover with the hem of his shirt, turns the bulb another thread to finish the job. The yellow comes back, fuller. He stands still for a second, dust on his hand. then picks up the empty cardboard box at the edge of the porch, folds it, and leans it against the wall to take out to the bin. He eases the sliding door. The track runs smooth, no words. Later that night, the father walks past the alley, both hands in his coat pockets. He doesn't stop. From the opposite sidewalk, he glances just enough to see the yellow holding steady, the step firm, the door tight. The road under his feet is cool and damp. The sound of his shoes on concrete is even as breathing. He keeps his back straight and walks on, shoulders not turning, stepping through his own shadow as it slips out of the porch's pool of light and into the next stretch of dark. At 3rd and Maple, the sign blinks a mild beat. Through the diner's glass, Ruth dries a cup. She looks up and sees him pass. She gives the smallest nod, just enough, like a spoon touching china. He nods back with a barely there tilt of the head, then continues along the river. Behind him, the place clicks off most of its lights, keeping only a thin strip for the cleaning shift. In his son's kitchen, the blue thermos stands on the shelf exactly where a thermos should stand. Its chipped paint catches a streak of light pouring from the cracked sliding door. On the fridge door, an electric bill is clipped with a round magnet, the top edge folded over, the top corner ticked with a tiny mark in blue pen. The due date is crossed through once. Beneath the magnet's corner, there's the clean print of a just-pressed hand. He passes, touches the paper's edge flat, and leaves it be. Night slows. On the porch, the bulb he just tightened burns steady. In the kitchen, the blue thermos leans into the wooden cubby of the shelf, quiet as someone who knows exactly where he belongs. No one says anything. No need. A small ray has switched itself on and holds. The porch light is steady. In the end, no one wins. There's only a porch light holding steady, a hinge that's fallen quiet, and the blue thermos moving from the car trunk to the son's kitchen shelf. Revenge in this story is neither a hard, steely turn of the back nor a condemnation. It's the way a man stops buying closeness and gives silence back its share of the work. Let the step stop groaning, then step out of the doorway he's just repaired. The son, afterward, tightens the bulb himself, handles his own electric bill. The years-long debt between them, the debt of words left unsaid, is paid in small, durable acts. Turn, oil, shim, wipe. Not loud, not closed, but steady. The gentlest payback, it turns out, is to stay with yourself kindly. To pin a conversation without rushing to answer, to set out a cup for the empty chair so that if someone returns, it's still warm. To wipe off the Robert and Emily glue trace and leave the empty space intact, not filling it with a new name, not forcing anyone into another role. From there, each person walks his own stretch, under a strip of light that's just enough. If you've ever tightened a bulb in your life or put a drop of oil on some old squeak how, did you return the favor? If you'd like, share in the comments just one small detail, an object, an action, a smell that kept you through a hard night. Who knows, those details might light a few more porches.